In today's video, I'm breaking down Warcraft Reborn's Bronzebeard, Ascension's Classic Plus realm focused on the original 9 classes inside an expanded vanilla world that progresses through vanilla, TBC, and Wrath, with new RPG systems, dungeons, raids, PvP, professions, itemization, new RPG systems, and currencies. Before diving in, just a quick note of context. Ascension has long been known for its classless World of Warcraft realms, where players could build unique hybrids by mixing spells and talents from every class. Bronzebeard is different. On Warcraft Reborn, they take a new approach. Rather than total freedom, it offers a Classic Plus experience built around the original 9 classes. It kind of reimagines Azeroth with fresh content, new expanded systems, and an emphasis on RPG elements, while still drawing on many of Ascension's older features and deep customization philosophy. And just to get the record straight, because I've seen a couple of comments saying that this is a Classic Plus. It actually says right here, a Classic Plus, right behind here. And it says Classic Plus several other places. People have been saying like, where do you get the Classic Plus from? It's not Classic Plus. It is Classic Plus. It says Classic Plus several places. It's just Classic Plus Plus Plus. But we'll get into that. What Bronzebeard is and isn't. Before we get into the systems, let's define what Bronzebeard actually is. This realm isn't just vanilla, and it isn't just TBC or Wrath recycled. It's a Classic Plus experience that reimagines the game around the original 9 classes, while still progressing through all 3 eras. Think of it as an alternate timeline, familiar but rebuilt with a focus on RPG depth, exploration, and modernized systems. Progression covers vanilla to TBC to Wrath, but through a Classic Plus lens, not a copy-paste of the expansions. Open world first, expanded zones, new points of interest, rare mobs, world bosses, and RPG itemization. With 1.5 experience rates, built by a full-time team, leveraging 8+ years of custom content, adapted to fit a Classic Plus experience. Now let's look at the broad strokes, the high-level features that define Bronzebeard. This section is all about the pillars that shape the entire server. The classes, the races, the dungeons and raids, the PvP systems, the professions, the currencies, and the quality of life changes. If you just want a quick overview of what this realm actually offers, this is it. At its core, Bronzebeard focuses on the original 9 classes. Each of them has been expanded with new spells, Wrath talent trees at level 60, and mystic enchantments that reinforce class identity and open up for new ways to play. Alongside that, you'll find new race and class combinations, things like undead and tauren paladins, dwarf shamans, troll druids, gnome priests, human hunters, etc. The open world has also been expanded. Rare spawns and treasure chests now offer spec-specific loot. Immersive gear drops from creatures mean that enemies can actually drop the equipment they're wearing on top of their normal loot tables. In total, there are over 20,000 new items spread across the Vanilla, Burning Crusade, and Wrath Arc, 7,000 hand-tailored immersive drops, and more than 1,800 world-forged RPG items, carefully placed throughout the world for you to discover. For dungeons, every classic instance has been reworked to support normal, heroic, mythic, and even Mythic Plus difficulties. On top of that, entirely new original dungeons have been created, along with select imports from later expansions that naturally fit into Vanilla's world. Raids also receive the same treatment, now designed as flexible 10 to 25 player experiences with 4 distinct difficulties: normal, heroic, mythic, and ascended. Loot lockouts apply per boss rather than per raid. PvP has also seen a massive overhaul. There are new battleground variants and more arena maps, with optional solo queue support. High-risk PvP lets you opt into gear drop combat out in the world, while honorable 1 versus 1 zones create fair dueling grounds. And large-scale events like the Crow's Cache add even more variety. Professions have been overhauled as well. Crafting now includes upgrade kits, a full affix system, and even grants experience as you level. Gathering professions scale alongside it, and a brand new profession, woodcutting, and woodworking has been added to the mix. Bronzebeard also introduces a wide range of quality of life improvements and challenges. Features include hardcore trials, prestige mode, cross-faction gameplay, toggleable transmogrification, and spell visuals, and account-wide reputations and achievements. Finally, one of the biggest changes lies in the systemic RPG overhaul. Creatures now behave, cast, and resist based on their type and their appearance. Their equipment directly affects their stats. They have resistances and vulnerabilities that matter. Bosses have been retuned, and the level scaling have been added to this Classic Plus world. This overview covers the pillars of Bronzebeard, but each of these features goes far deeper once you dive into the details. On Bronzebeard, classes are built around Wrath-era design. The original 9 return with downscaled abilities from the Burning Crusade and Wrath, redesigned talent trees, and enough depth to make every specialization viable, even the ones that barely worked in vanilla. Mystic Enchantments add another layer. They provide utility, passives, or even spec-defining abilities without requiring the larger point budgets of later expansions. This is where specs really start to play differently. For example, a hunter can run a Beastmaster-style melee survival build. The same hunter can go lone wolf marksman without a pet, or stick to a more traditional marksman setup with a pet. That's 3 distinct ways to play one class, and similar flexibility exists across all 9. What used to be 3 specializations can easily turn into 6 or more viable builds. The bottom line is that hybrids are viable, underused specs have support, and almost every playstyle has a path forward. The amount of depth here is enormous, far too much to cover in a single video. Class-by-class breakdowns will need their own deep dives later. The variety of playstyles on Bronzebeard doesn't come from talents alone. Mystic Enchantments act as the extra layer that pushes classes beyond their usual boundaries. Unlike Ascension's classless realms, these aren't about throwing random hybrids together. They are designed to add flavor, utility, and sometimes even game-changing abilities to the 9 core classes. This system bridges vanilla with modern design. Mystic Enchantments come in 4 rarities: Artifact, Legendary, Epic, and Rare. They can grant entirely new spells, tweak existing abilities, add powerful passives, or even cover talents that normally sit across different trees. Most are found out in the open world, hidden in crypts, caves, ruins, or dropped by unique creatures. And I think that some are also available from vendors. And honestly, this is the feature I'm most intrigued by. I hope they really nail it, because systems like this can make or break a Classic Plus server. Season of Discovery showed what's possible, but it was also very messy. If Bronzebeard pulls this off cleanly, it could be the thing that really sets it apart. If Mystic Enchantments change how you play, the open world is what makes Azeroth itself feel different. This is where Bronzebeard really tries to stand out. Exploration, immersion, and RPG systems have all been expanded. Creatures fight the way they look. Rare items are hidden across the map, and loot actually feels tied to the world. There are new points of interest, rare spawns, and world bosses. Mobs can drop the weapons or armor they're wearing, and over 1,800 world-forged RPG items are hand-placed across Azeroth, lootable once per character. On top of that, you can upgrade these items with runes of Ascension, keeping your favorites relevant all the way up to Naxxramas. On paper that sounds great, but it's also where I start to get skeptical. Systems like this can easily spiral out of control if upgrades are too strong or too easy to stack. Progression risks becoming messy, and the natural gear curve that makes Classic feel rewarding could get lost. And if rare drops and world items end up tuned too high, then quests and dungeons, the backbone of vanilla, risk being pushed aside. I think that runes of Ascension are earned through quests and gameplay, which is good. But if they can also be bought directly, that's where the pay-to-win problem comes in. If that turns out to be a thing, then that is also something that could kill the game for me. So Bronzebeard also has level scaling, but instead of making every mob match your level exactly, enemies trail slightly behind you. You still feel stronger as you progress, but the world doesn't fall completely flat. On the good side, this means early zones don't instantly turn grey and useless the second you outlevel them. You can go back, finish quests, and still feel some challenge without it being overwhelming. It also keeps group content more flexible. Your level 30 friend isn't completely useless if you're 40, because the scaling keeps things closer together. But it does come with risks. Scaling can flatten progression, so you don't feel that natural power growth that makes Classic rewarding. And it can invalidate older zones, because if everything scales forever, the journey through Azeroth stops feeling like a journey at all. That's the main concern here. If they push it too far, it edges Bronzebeard closer to retail design. So this could be a smart system if it's tuned well, but it could just as easily break the Classic feel, so let's hope they get it right. Bronzebeard also puts a huge focus on professions. They aren't just side activities anymore. They're meant to be a real progression path, all the way to Endgame. There are a few key changes here. Upgrade kits let you push crafted gear into higher tiers. Affixes on items have been reworked with proper stat pools. You even gain XP from crafting and gathering, which means you can level characters through professions instead of just combat. And on top of that, there's a brand new profession, woodcutting and woodworking. Endgame crafted items are also stronger than in Classic and can stay viable through upgrades, so crafting doesn't just die off at max level. If Bronzebeard can keep adding unique recipes, meaningful upgrades, and fresh uses for professions all the way through the game, then this could easily be an exciting part of the server. I'm also curious to see if woodcutting and woodworking will actually feel meaningful, or if it'll just end up as filler on the side. Dungeon difficulty is being completely reworked on Bronzebeard. Instead of being one and done leveling spots, every vanilla dungeon now scales and supports 4 difficulty modes: normal, heroic, mythic, and mythic plus. That means dungeons stay relevant all the way through the game instead of falling off after one run. Mythic Plus is also fully fleshed out here. It has streamlined affixes, vendor recycling, and instant gear upgrades up to the highest key you've cleared, so you don't have to waste time farming low levels just to catch up. On top of that, there are brand new dungeons like Karajan Crypts and Torwatha, along with a few select imports from later expansions that actually make sense in the vanilla world. It all sounds great on paper. More reasons to run dungeons, more variety, and more progression paths. My only concern is whether Mythic Plus will fit naturally into a Classic Plus environment. Done right, it could add long-term replayability. Done wrong, it risks feeling like a retail system dropped into Classic. And with 4 different difficulty tiers for every dungeon, it already feels a bit overwhelming, but we'll have to see how this one plays out. Raids on Bronzebeard have also been reworked with more flexibility. They now support groups from 10 up to 25 players and come in 4 different difficulty tiers: normal, heroic, mythic, and ascended. Loot lockouts apply per boss instead of per raid, which means you can join multiple runs each week without feeling punished for it. Classic raids like Zul'Gurub and AQ20 return with new loot philosophy and better support for specs that were left behind in vanilla. On top of that, there are new custom world bosses and reworked encounters with fresh mechanics to keep things interesting. Normal difficulty is baseline gear. Heroic difficulty is stronger versions, better item level, more variety. Mythic difficulty is top tier loot, plus more complex mechanics. Ascended difficulty is their custom difficulty, which is above mythic, with unique rewards, likely cosmetics, achievements, or special loot to show you did the hardest version. So in short, higher difficulty means better loot. And Ascended seems to be their prestige mode with bragging rights attached. Some of this sounds good: more options for groups, better loot distribution, and bosses that don't feel stuck in 2004 design. For raids, I'm not sure. 4 difficulties might be a bit excessive, but I'm honestly not that opinionated about PvE endgame, so I'm open to different approaches. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in practice. Itemization on Bronzebeard has been completely overhauled. Across vanilla TBC and Wrath content, there are over 20,000 new items. 7,000 of those are hand-tailored immersive drops. And every spec, even the ones that had almost no proper gear support back in the day, now gets meaningful options. New tier sets have been created to cover specs that never had them, and relics have been expanded so that every role has something relevant to work toward. Reputation rewards have also been modernized for factions like Argent Dawn and Cenarian Circle, so those grinds actually feel rewarding instead of outdated. Progression has also been streamlined, global tier tokens, horizontal gearing paths across different specs, and Raiders commendations make sure you're always moving forward, even if RNG isn't on your side. Marks of Triumph from dungeons add another layer of gearing as well, so there are multiple ways to catch up or gear alts without feeling left behind. It's ambitious, but it could solve one of Classic's biggest problems, the lack of itemization for off-meta specs. At the same time, it raises the question of whether handing out so many gearing paths risks making progression too fast or too easy. If they strike the balance, it could be one of Bronzebeard's strongest features. PvP on Bronzebeard goes far beyond the original battlegrounds. There are new variants of Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin, plus imported maps like Temple of Kotmogu and Twin Peaks. Arenas are fully supported with 2 versus 2 and 3 versus 3 brackets, and even optional solo queues so you can jump in without needing a pre-made team. High-risk PvP is a system Ascension is bringing over to Bronzebeard. It's optional, and if you enable it, you're flagged for open-world PvP, where defeated players can drop gear. To balance the risk, there are blood-forged PvP items and other rewards tied to the system, giving players a reason to opt in. At the other end of the spectrum, honorable 1 versus 1 zones are designed for structured duels. When you enter one of these areas, you're automatically matched against another player. And once the fight begins, nobody else can interfere. No ganking, no outside heals, no third parties, just a clean one-on-one duel where skill alone decides the outcome. And then there are large-scale events like the Crow's Cache, where guilds can fight over objectives in the open world for valuable rewards. All of this is tied together by the hybrid risk system. Instead of splitting the population between PvP and PvE servers, everyone plays on one realm. So in major cities you will be able to toggle between PvE, no-risk PvP, or high-risk PvP. That way, the world feels alive without fragmenting the community. But here's the catch. Bronzebeard also uses resilience. And I'll be honest, it's one of the features I dislike the most. Resilience separates PvP and PvE gearing completely. If you want to do both, you'll need 2 sets of gear and constantly keep them updated. On top of that, PvP gearing stops being about freedom and creativity and instead just turns into a checklist, the correct set you grind piece by piece with no real room to experiment. That goes against what made vanilla PvP fun, where you could mix raid gear, dungeon gear, and world drops to make your own playstyle. But it's a lot of variety, and on paper it looks like one of the most complete PvP systems ever built into a classic setting. Now, question is whether high-risk PvP feels rewarding instead of punishing, and whether resilience ends up dividing players instead of uniting them. If they get the tuning right, this could end up being a good feature. But resilience is a big red flag for me, personally. And then there's PvP power and PvE power, which are 2 stats you'll find on most gear. I'm not entirely sure exactly how they function yet, but on the surface it does seem a bit overcomplicated. Obviously, PvE power makes an item stronger in PvE, and PvP power does the same in PvP. That part's clear enough, but whether the system as a whole adds depth or just more clutter isn't really obvious yet. And on top of that, it also seems to push the separation between PvE and PvP players even further. For now, it's something we'll just have to see play out in practice. We've talked a lot about how gearing works in PvP and PvE, but not every form of progression on Warcraft Reborn is tied to raids or battlegrounds. There are also systems built directly into the open world. things like the Hero's Callboard, treasure caches, and ways to keep questing and exploration rewarding even at max level. The Hero's Callboard is a hub for open world endgame content. Instead of only living in raids or battlegrounds, you can pick up new world quests and challenges here. It ties progression directly into Azeroth itself, making exploration a core part of your path forward. Treasure caches have also been completely reworked. Instead of flooding the world with endless boxes full of junk, there are fewer of them, but the rewards they give are stronger and more meaningful. The idea is quality over quantity, reducing inflation while still giving you reasons to head off the beaten path. This design is about making sure there's always something to do outside of instances, whether that's chasing world loot, following a callboard chain, or cracking open a rare cache. It's a way to keep the world itself part of endgame, not just something you level through once and forget. So at the end of the day, Warcraft Reborn has a lot of things going for it. On the pro side, I'm really intrigued by the direction they're taking with draft style talents in a vanilla/classic setting. That alone changes the way classes play. And if it's done right, it could give us far more build variety than we've seen before. And the Mystic Enchantments, that's another system that I'm intrigued by. There's no doubt in my mind that this system is better than what we got with Season of Discovery, which was just messy and really poorly executed, I'd say. I also like that they've expanded the open world and made exploration matter again with rare items, worldforged loot, and secrets scattered across Azeroth. That's the kind of thing Classic Plus players crave, and I'll give them credit for account-wide reputations and achievements. That's one of those changes that just makes sense. It's really alt-friendly and nobody wants to grind the same reps over and over again. But there are also a lot of cons. I'm not sure I actually like all the difficulty settings for dungeons and raids. Personally, on this point, I'd rather see them do what they did in Season of Discovery, which add a token at the end of each dungeon, so you still progress towards your dungeon sets, even if you don't get any loot. Stacking 4 difficulty settings, that feels a bit excessive. And I actually don't think they have any new zones added to the game. So Hydial is off, Gilneas is off. You're not gonna see any of these new zones as we do in Turtle WoW, for example. We're not gonna see those here on Ascension. At least not in the beginning. Maybe they'll add that later on, but I doubt it, because they do intend, I think, to progress into the Burning Crusade and then further into Wrath of the Lich King. So they do plan on introducing, I think they plan on introducing flying mounts, of course, and all of that, which is not something I necessarily am a fan of. And level scaling is another one of them. We'll have to see how this works. It could be nice to keep the whole world more relevant and keep it more challenging, but it could also as easily flatten progression and rob you of that sense of getting stronger as you level. And then there's resilience and PvE and PvP power, separating players into PvEers or PvPers, which I think is losing that gear freedom that makes vanilla PvP so much fun in the first place. I'm definitely going to try the server. It looks ambitious. I think some of the things are really hit the nail on the head. But is it going to be my home long term? I'm not so sure. It really depends on how all these systems feel in practice, if they click, or if there's pay to win or not. One thing I'd love to see is add resilience maybe on all gear. That could fix some of the PvP and PvE separation issues and give PvPers some more gear freedom, because if you force me to choose, I'm going to choose PvP over PvE, but I don't want to, and I don't have time to farm 2 separate sets and constantly have them updated. So I'm gonna feel forced into PvP, which in my opinion is only experiencing half of the game. I think a lot of Classic Plus, now I know this isn't strictly a Classic Plus server, but I think this is the crowd that they're going for. This is probably not really what people want from a Classic Plus, but I think they're trying to get some of those people that came from Season of Discovery, that Classic Plus crowd. That's the hype right now, and they want to capitalize on that with this server. But I think it with all the systems and all this, so many overwhelming features, it risks collapsing under its own weight. Many of these systems are retail systems, and I think a lot of people, they crave that simplicity. If you're somebody who really enjoyed Season of Discovery, I think you're gonna enjoy this one as well. I think you're gonna enjoy Warcraft Reborn. But if you hated Season of Discovery, I am not sure. I don't actually think that this is going to be something for you, because this is pretty much Season of Discovery on steroids. Either way, I'll be there when it launches to test it out. I'll be making more videos on this, and I'm looking forward to see how things actually play out. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you like it, please like and subscribe if you want to watch more Classic Plus content. Of course, I'm covering Turtle WoW, Project Epoch, and also Ascension, and whenever Blizzard pulls their head out of their asses and give us a Classic Plus, I'll also be covering that. But that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.